Okay. Hi everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Media Mirrors, the interview series where I speak with members of the SPSG community regarding their experiences and opinions on diverse representation in media. Today I have with me my second interviewee. Do you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Samantha Murray. I'm a junior at St. Paul's.
If you're part of any marginalized groups that you identify with, also share please.
I identify as pansexual, so part of the LGBTQ community.
Alright, well thank you. So, to start off, do you consider being pansexual a defining aspect of who you are?
I feel like for me it kind of depends, because in certain conversations it's definitely like when I'm in GSA that creates new conversations, but in my daily life it's just kind of who I am, and all of my friends know, so I don't think anyone really thinks about it at all.
Yeah, I gotcha. How do you think that being part of the LGBTQ plus community has affected your life at all?
It's definitely broadened my perspective, I think, especially because my church is really open about everything.
That's good, yeah.
They've gone to pride parades before.
Nice.
So I think it's brought new opportunities into my life that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think it's affected it in more positive ways for
That's
now
good.
than it has
Yeah.
negative, which is definitely a breath of fresh air for
Nice,
me.
that's for sure, yeah. To kind of start off our questions, what kinds of TV shows do you watch? Any favorites?
I watch a lot of TV shows. I've restarted Friends, which is great.
I love Friends.
It's so
We talked about that in our last interview actually with Mr.
Did you
Moore.
really?
Yeah.
But I think two of my all-time favorites are probably She-Ra, which
I love that show, it's so good.
and then I have to say Heartstopper.
Mhm.
It's just so good.
For sure. I mean, this is kind of self-explanatory, but do you think that the shows that you watch, at least that your favorites are, have a diverse cast of characters, diverse representation? I mean, definitely Heartstopper and She-Ra for sure.
Yeah, with those two at least. And like with Friends, it's hard because it is an older show.
Yeah.
But I feel like for the most part, everything I watch has a good representation throughout all the
Do you think, at least with She-Ra specifically, since it's an animated show, it's more geared towards children or like middle school age?
Supposedly.
Supposedly, right? It's not really like, it's for everybody. But I mean, do you think if you had seen a show like that when you were younger, do you think that would have changed anything about how you perceive yourself, if you came to terms with your identity sooner, things like that? I mean, at least for me, watching, that's one of my favorite shows too. If I had seen that when I was in like middle school, I would have been like, oh wow, you know?
Honestly, probably. But I think I started watching it in 7th grade, and that was right around when I started.
Right, that was when it came out, like 2020.
When I started realizing anyways.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's good.
if it was around earlier, I would probably have realized sooner, but
Yeah.
I think the timing was right.
Yeah. Do you think that in other shows that you've seen that might have less, like, I don't know, accurate, more stereotypical representation, do you think that people that watch those, shows that don't have as, like, accurate representation are gonna think that that's how it is for everybody? Like, the stereotypes, like, I'm thinking more like the like, how do you think that's like?
That's a really good example with Heartstopper.
Yeah.
Because I think it's definitely like, it's cheesy high school rom-com, but it does touch on all of the serious aspects that many people in the LGBTQ community go through, like having hard times with your family accepting you, changing friend groups in schools. But I feel like the stereotypes definitely help. Because even if they are portraying them in ways that are a little more over-exaggerated,
At least it's being talked about,
It gives people like a good idea about what's actually happening, and in some cases, worse things are happening than what they put on the shows.
Exactly.
So it's good that they're a little, I guess,
cheesy,
eccentric.
at times. Yeah.
But it's also, I feel like in a way, now that I know myself more,
Right.
it's kind of
It's
funny.
fun. I think it's
Like,
hilarious.
I'll be sitting there and I'm like,
wow, this would not happen in real life, but I think it's great.
I don't think I can see myself going through this scenario, but hey, I mean, at least it's in there.
Yeah, but then you get things where, like, there's been a lot of, like, people complaining about, oh, it's a diversity cast, or, like, when people make their entire character, like, based around that minority identity. Like, I feel like that's kind of a problem recently with, like,
they try too hard.
They try too hard to, like, sort of fill a quota, and not actually trying to, like, represent the community. I think that's been definitely prevalent with things like with the discourse over the Little Mermaid movie, people saying,
which I loved.
I know, it was so
really good.
I know, it was really good. But like, I don't know, I just think that's been such a prevalent thing lately with like, and you'd think we'd come further.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
a bit
weird.
unfortunate. But how do you think diverse versus limited representation affects how a person perceives himself? Regardless if they're a part of a minority community or not. What do you think about that?
I think having a more diverse perspective and representation when you're watching shows definitely, for me at least, it makes me feel more included. But if it's not as diverse, then it's more targeted to specific people.
Yeah, that's true.
And so like, say if I was like, I don't know, a straight white man, I would find different shows interesting than pansexual me does.
Yeah.
But then again, that also helps shape people's personalities. So it's hard because as much as it is beneficial to have the diverse shows, I know there are people that prefer to not have them. And so for individuals, I feel like it just depends.
No, I get that. I feel like for like what I was thinking about when like coming up with the questions, I thought more of like when you're somebody who sees an identity on TV and a character that you don't identify with, and then that's the only like idea that you have of that, and then you go into the real world and you're like expecting that to be how it is, and it's not that way. I feel like that's where there could be some improvement in the future with getting people on the like writing teams and in the cast who actually like are part of these different identities to be able to know like how to actually act like that, you know, like I don't know, because like you get shows like Heartstopper or something, who's like the author, I don't know pronouns, Alice Oseman is like, you know, actually involved in the community, but then you get things like I don't really know an example, but like where the writers were all just like old white guys in a room, like around a table, like, you know, not actually
use,
like
Harry Potter for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what, Cho Chang?
Yeah.
That's so horrible.
I know. It's like you get stuff like that, and it's like you wish that people could actually like talk to people from those groups and be like, hey, this is how it is, and not like assuming, you know. To kind of open it up, would you want to see any changes? Are there any shows that you think could do better, or that you really like that they have? How it's doing, like give me some shows, like
kind of like what we just said. The only change that I feel would be beneficial is if they had more, not more types of stereotypes, but they had more diverse versions of each stereotype, because it's always like there's one gay guy who is out, and there's one guy who's trying to come out, and then there's one transgender student or whatever it is. There's always one of each, and they always feel the same. If we had shows that had a better array of LGBTQ characters and not just the stereotypical like this one, and this one, I feel like that would help, because then it's also, when you do that, you're going to end up with more stories, and you're going to end up with more perspective, and you're going to include a lot more audience members with the same like topics.
You know, a movie that I loved was Nimona. Did you watch that?
It.
It's so
I've heard it's
good.
really good.
Oh, it's so good. I think it won an Oscar for something. I'm not quite sure what, but I think that movie was, because that's also written by the creator of She-Ra.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's a graphic novel that they turned into a movie. But that movie was a really great like representation of how to do it without making it the character's entire personality, because it was like one of the like, not really main character, but like the secondary character, and like his like relationship with this guy, and it was so like just weaved into the story really well, you know. And I think that's what we need more of. I think that's what I said earlier as well. But it's like where it's just not about the character's whole like journey as part of that group necessarily, but just them existing in a plot with other characters that have different identities, and that's just like how it is.
And that's one thing I love about She-Ra, even if it was written for a younger audience. It's just so cohesive.
I know,
it's so smooth.
It just fits with who the characters are.
Exactly.
Like, you wouldn't even think of them being any other way.
And I don't know if that's because it doesn't take place on like this earth, so they can get away with it just being so smooth. Yeah. Because here we have all the issues and the struggles, but it's just so nice to watch.
I know, it really is refreshing. It's really nice to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you have any other thoughts you want to share, if not, that's not good.
Covered it.
Yeah, well, this was really great. Thank you so much for coming. I love this conversation. I'm glad we could talk.
Me too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that was fun. We did it. I knocked my water bottle over.
At least you did it after we're done.
True.
Imagine like